Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an incredibly powerful closer in the upcoming Holiday Cup, and that is Gyro Ball TOGEDEMARU. TOGEDEMARU is a Steel and Electric type Pokemon with the moveset of Thunder Shock, Wild Charge, and Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball gives TOGEDEMARU the ability to hit Ice types for super effective, and on top of that, the ability to one-shot Aurorus. I tested it out in some practice battles with members of my Discord. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Gyro Ball TOGEDEMARU in action in the Holiday Cup. Hopping to the first match, and I'm leading Altaria into Jellicent. While I do have two better responses in the back, I'm going to stay in to bank a Sky Attack before I do safe switch out of here. In comes Double. My opponent is going to fire off a charge move. I'm going to let this through, and it is just a Bubble Beam. My opponent staying in, continuing to farm, and they end up losing CMP on the payback. That is massive. Even when debuffed, payback is going to do a ton of damage, and I'm going to let this through, as odds are, it's probably only another Bubble Beam. My opponent is going to send in Talonflame. Talonflame will be able to farm up quite a bit of energy here. I'm firing off the Body Slam. Body Slam is going to connect. I should be able to reach a second Body Slam as they continue to farm. This Body Slam will get them into the yellow if they let it through. My opponent commits the shield. That's honestly quite nice for me. They're at 100 energy, so they do need to start throwing. They fire off the Flame Charge. That's going to KO. I send in Altaria. I try and farm up and throw the Sky Attack just before the Brave Bird, but I accidentally farm too much, and I play into a CMP tie. Definitely not a great play by me. Brave Bird nearly knocks out. I'm able to get rid of the Talonflame, and now it's all up to TOGEDEMARU, but it's an Aurorus in the back. My opponent will send in Jellicent. At this point, honestly, I've lost count of Jellicent's energy, so I do commit the shield. It is just a Bubble Beam, but it's not going to matter, as Aurorus is about to feel the wrath of TOGEDEMARU. They go for the Weather Ball. That's not going to do a lot of damage. I farm to 100, and I'm going straight for the Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball gets the shield, but that was the final shield they had, and now it's TOGEDEMARU's time to shine. Gyro Ball one-shots Aurorus, and that is a good game. Terrible lead in the next match, Altaria into Alolan Sandshrew. I save switch into Dubwool, and my opponent responds with a Shadow Alolan Marowak. This is a matchup where I should be able to force shields, as payback will hit for massive super effective damage. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and if they're running the typical moveset, then they're going to be forced to go for Bone Clubs in this matchup. And Bone Club is a pretty terrible charge move. They're firing off another one. I should be able to tank this and reach a second payback, meaning that I'm definitely grabbing shield advantage, but I may be able to deal massive super effective damage as well. My opponent is going to double shield and farm all the way down. That's perfectly fine by me, as I've baited out their fire type, which is definitely nice. TOGEDEMARU does not appreciate Alolan Marowak, and now I can bring back in the Altaria, and Altaria will be able to go for the Sky Attack, and Sky Attack will get rid of the Marowak. And now I just have to trust in TOGEDEMARU to close this game. In comes TOGEDEMARU, and it's going to be met with the Alolan Sandshrew. Sandshrew probably going to be firing off Night Slashes. In case they get the boost, I am going to let the first one through. Night Slash is going to land. They're firing off Night Slash number 2, and I will begin to start shielding. I'm just going to continue to farm up here, and I decide to go for the Wild Charge. Wild Charge does do slightly more damage. It's going to KO, and in the back, they have Wigglytuff, and this is the perfect time for Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball will hit for massive super effective damage. Wigglytuff, thanks to my lower defense, is able to farm down. It's a race. Dragon Breath versus Charm, and we get the farm down. The tough leads continue in the next match, Altaria into Aurorus. I do have two responses in the back, so I will save switch into Dubwool, and my opponent responds with Vigoroth. This is a very neutral matchup, both of us hitting for super effective damage with our fast moves and spamming out neutral body slams in return. My opponent is going to fire off their Body Slam. I'm going to let this through, throw one more double kick, and then fire off the Body Slam. If this lands, I will be able to force switch advantage here. I fire off the Body Slam, and my opponent is going to commit the shield and farm down. So unfortunately, I'm not able to take switch, but I did get shield advantage, and that should hopefully set up TOGEDEMARU nicely to close in the end game. Vigoroth will fire off a Body Slam. I'm going to let that through. They'll reach Body Slam number 2. I'm going to let this go as well. I'm putting my full faith in TOGEDEMARU. Altaria gets the farm down. In comes Aurorus. I bring in TOGEDEMARU, and they have their own Altaria in the back. So TOGEDEMARU is well suited to handle this Altaria. I'm going to be able to hit for neutral damage with the Gyro Ball and not debuff my defense, which is incredibly nice in this matchup. They're going to fire off a charge move, they go straight for the Moonblast, and I do commit the shield. I'm going to continue to farm up here. I'm at the back-to-back wild charges, and I'm going to fire off the first one. This wild charge is going to KO if they let it through, which they do. I'm now debuffed, and I'm going to bait with a wild charge. This is risky, but they've seen Gyro Ball, so they will commit the shield. This is a Weather Ball. I'm debuffed, so I will shield. And then I think I'm going to have to catch. I'm going to farm up 4 more, switch, and catch onto Altaria. That is huge. My opponent goes for the undercharge, and they're going for the farm down. This is not good, but these Dragon Breaths should put it close to wild charge range, and I managed to fire off the wild charge. Is this going to be enough damage? Yes, it is. And that is a good game. Moving into the next match, leading Altaria into Unova Stunfisk. Considering I have a TOGEDEMARU in the back, I am very happy to catch the ground type on the lead. I'm just going to stay in this matchup and play out the Zero Shield. Stunfisk is going to fire off discharge after discharge, and that is perfectly fine by me, as I'm just going to be able to tank all of these moves and then return fire with Moonblast. And Moonblast is going to hit for some significant damage if my opponent lets it through. Altaria charging up the Moonblast, it lands, taking Stunfisk deep into the red. Stunfisk is going to fire off another discharge. I should be able to live this, but not by much. It's going to be close. Discharge gets the Altaria low. Altaria gets the farm down, and here I make a mistake. I should have just thrown the Sky Attack, but instead I bank the energy and I pivot into Dubwool. Dubwool does take quite a bit of damage from Avalanche, and now my opponent is going to send in Obstagoon to absorb my energy. And Obstagoon in the back is pretty deadly considering that my Dubwool has basically been taken out. I will be able to reach a second Body Slam. This will do some nice chip damage onto my opponent. It does get the Obstagoon into the red, but Obstagoon is able to get the farm down. I send in Altaria, but I lose CMP. I'm going to let this go, and now I have to try and Thundershock down an Obstagoon before it gets to a move, but as you see, Obstagoon lives with a sliver of HP. They reach a move, and now at a shield disadvantage, I'm in a lot of trouble versus Frostlass. Frostlass honestly can probably just go straight Avalanche at this point, and there's just not a whole lot I can do. I go for the Gyro Ball. I decide to call an Avalanche bait. Avalanche is not going to KO, but as you're going to see, my health is low enough from the counters that unfortunately I will get farmed down and lose the match. We've got some extreme spice in the next match. Altaria into XL Alolan Geodude. I'm going to throw a couple Dragon Breaths and then save switch into my Dubwool. My opponent is going to bank a ton of energy and then send in Pelipper, but I have a big energy lead here, so I'm going to spam out Body Slams and begin forcing shields. Throw one double kick, I'm at Body Slam number 2, and all I need is one additional double kick, and I will be at Body Slam number 3, and this will guarantee me switch advantage or shield advantage, and I'm fine with either. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and they're going to start firing off charge moves. At this point, Dubwool has done its job. It's an incredible save switch in this format, as now I'm in a pretty nice spot. I've been able to grab shield advantage, so TOGEDEMARU should hopefully be able to put in a ton of work in the endgame. I get the farm down, my opponent is going to send back in the Geodude. I decide to tank a move, and then I am going to switch. They go for the Rock Slide, that does a ton of damage, and I'm going to send in TOGEDEMARU, and in the back, they have Shadow Gliscor, and I am incredibly happy that I have access to Gyro Ball here. Gyro Ball is going to hit for massive neutral damage, and now the Shadow Gliscor is deep into the red. This is enough for the Earthquake. I call the bait, and it's just a Night Slash. That is huge. Gliscor is going to fire off another Night Slash. I will commit the shield, and I'm going to continue to farm. This is definitely Wild Charge range. I'm going to build up to the back-to-back and fire off the Wild Charge. Decision time for my opponent. They elect to let the Gliscor go. They're putting their full faith into the Geodude. Geodude continues to farm, but I'm able to reach the back-to-back Wild Charges. First one gets the shield, and the second one is going to get the KO. TOGEDEMARU, too spammy, and that is a good game. Picking up a bit of a tough lead in the next match, Altaria into Magneton. I'm going to immediately save switch into Dubwool. My opponent is going to stay in here and fire off a Magnet Bomb, so odds are they don't have a great check to Dubwool in the back. Magnet Bomb lands, and they send in a Alolan Marowak. Marowak is non-shadow, which means they can tank a payback, but it is going to do a ton of damage. I continue to farm. Here, I make a definite mistake. I go for the body slam and I end up losing CMP. Honestly, I shouldn't have even thrown the body slam because like the Bone Club here, it's not going to KO. And all this does is just deprive my Altaria of extra farm. So my opponent is going to get the farm down. I'm able to farm with Altaria as well, but I get less farm than if I didn't throw the body slam. Magneton is going to fire off a Magnet Bomb. That's perfectly fine. I will be able to tank the Magnet Bomb as it only hits for neutral, and then I should be able to reach a Moonblast. Moonblast will KO from this range. Magneton is extremely squishy. Magneton commits the shield, and honestly, I can probably shield and farm down here. That's how glassy Magneton is. My opponent is going to realize that. They send in Jellicent, and I respond with TOGEDEMARU. They fire off a Bubble Beam right away, trying to lower the amount of damage I can do, but TOGEDEMARU has a ton of attack. Even debuffed, this Wild Charge is going to hurt. I'm firing off the Wild Charge. Wild Charge nearly able to KO, and TOGEDEMARU gets the farm down. Back in comes Magneton. TOGEDEMARU farming up to the back-to-back Wild Charges. At this point, the game is over. Opponent lets the first one through, and that is a good game. Picking up a slightly positive lead in the next match, Altaria into Lantern. My opponent save switches into Frostlass, and I immediately counter with TOGEDEMARU. TOGEDEMARU, of course, does hit incredibly hard, but that does come at a cost, and that is that TOGEDEMARU is pretty glassy. One Shadow Ball would put me into the red health, so I'm going to commit the shield and then fire back with the Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball would easily KO. My opponent is forced to commit the shield. And now that I've gotten some significant Thundershock damage off, I should be able to double Wild Charge and go for the KO. So I'm going to double up on Wild Charges here, and now if my opponent shields, they're going to lose their second shield and switch advantage, so they elect to let that go. They send back in Lantern. I'm expecting that it could be a second Ice type in the back, so I do want to save my TOGEDEMARU, and here I make a crucial mistake. I pivot into Altaria instead of pivoting into Dubwool, and as you're going to see, now my entire Altaria gets absolutely shredded by the Aurorus, so a definite misplay on my part. I do still have TOGEDEMARU, and TOGEDEMARU, thanks to Gyro Ball, will be able to force the final shield from Aurorus, as this would easily one-shot. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and they're going to fire off a charge move. No shields remaining, I just have to take the damage, and they go for the Meteor Beam. They are now boosted. These double kicks are tearing through Aurorus, and I'm going to fire off a Body Slam. This is resisted, but it should put it into a range where they're forced to go for the Weather Ball instead of building up to a Meteor Beam. Weather Ball is boosted, it's definitely going to hurt, and now the question is, can I reach a payback, as this is not quite Body Slam range. My opponent is going to fire off a Thunderbolt. That gets me low. I can't quite get there, and that is a good game. Hopping into the final match, and we see the same leads as last game, Altaria into Lantern, but this Lantern is running Water Gun. Water Gun, of course, does hit for resisted damage, but they're still able to connect with neutral Thunderbolts. Thunderbolt is able to land, I continue to farm, they go for a catch onto Noctowl, I'm able to save my energy and send in TOGEDEMARU. TOGEDEMARU will be able to tank a Shadow Ball from Noctowl and massively overfarm in this matchup because a Wild Charge is going to be lethal. I'm able to double up on Wild Charges, and now it's decision time for my opponent. Are they willing to commit a shield? They are not, and they get taken out. I'm hoping that I will be able to farm up to 2 more Wild Charges versus the Lantern, but unfortunately, the Water Guns are just too oppressive. I fire off the Wild Charge, I get the shield, and they're able to get the farm down. I do have the Moonblast loaded on Altaria, and I'm going straight for it. Moonblast is going to land, getting them low. They're able to reach a last-second charge move. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to trust in Dubwool. It's just a Surf. In the back, they have Trevenant, and this game is over. Another reason why I love Payback on Dubwool is that way you can hit Trevenants for massive super effective damage. I'm going straight for the Payback here. Baiting is a lose con. Payback does get shielded. My opponent trying their best to play their way out of it, but not today. Dubwool just reigns supreme in this matchup. One of the reasons I love Dubwool compared to something like Vigoroth. Vigoroth does a very similar job, but unfortunately without the ghost coverage, it ends up being walled by stuff like Driftblim and Trevenant, whereas Dubwool has the one-shot potential, farms down the Lantern, and secures the win. All in all, I think Gyro Ball TOGEDEMARU is a powerful closer for the Holiday Cup. Since Aurorus is the #1 Pokemon, having a Pokemon on your team that resists all of Aurorus' charge moves and can one-shot it with a Gyro Ball is an incredibly helpful Pokemon to use. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.